Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much, everyone, for being here. What a great crowd. I'm really looking forward to this evening's presentation by Rita and Tiffany. And just to let you know the order of the agenda, I believe that we can put the agenda up there, but I'm going to turn the program over to Rita, Mayor Rita Albrecht, and Tiffany Fedig from Bemidji.
Yes.
Correct. That's the correct pronunciation, by the way. And they're going to talk about some of the things that have happened in Bemidji, some of the challenges, some of the opportunities that they faced. And then we're going to turn it over to a panel, including some Downtown Riverfront Council members. Steve Erickson, Steve Rufert, Anthony Hicks are going to join Rita and Tiffany up here and just kind of have a discussion about some of the things, some of the challenges and opportunities we face in Fergus, and some of the challenges and opportunities that they've had in Bemidji. And there's some synergy. Every time Rita and I have gotten together, she always, we always talk about there's just a lot in common with Bemidji and Fergus Falls. So I think we can learn a lot. Just want to say thank you to Josie Schmidt and Bella Cucinas for hosting us this evening, for the wonderful food. To Michael Burgraff for getting us set up with the sound, and Peg Access for videoing, and of course to Cooper's for supplying the video and the projection screen, and of course to the Downtown Riverfront Council for sponsoring, hosting, and putting on this event. So thank you. So really excited, mayor to mayor. It's our third one. We've visited with the mayor of St. Paul, the mayor of Fargo, and this is in my eyes so I can't see, but is Mayor Mahoney here tonight? I don't think he is he? So I can say tonight I get to introduce my favorite mayor.
Oh yeah.
Don't tell him I said that, because mayors don't like those kind of things. So Tessa this morning said, what's going on tonight? It's a mayor to mayor? There's lots of mayor to mayor stuff. Mayors are weird, aren't they? I said, yeah, I guess they kind of are. But we're really excited to have Mayor Rita here this evening to join us. I've gotten to know Rita over the last year, and I really, truly will say I have a lot of admiration and a lot of respect, and I'm really honored to call her a friend. When something happens, it's nice to get outside the bubble of the little community that you live in. So when something happens in Fergus Falls, Rita's usually one of the first people that I call, and because I know she's probably been through it, and I really respect the way she takes care of business and the way she carries herself. This last Friday, Rita and I were on a panel up in Perham of mayors, and we were discussing some of the issues with the rural-urban divide. And anyway, again, just kind of get outside the bubble and talk with mayors from around the state and see that some of the challenges that we're facing here are not, we're not alone. And after the presentation, I had the mayor of Becker come up to me, and I had never met her before, but she said, someone told me that I needed to talk to you because I know you guys are facing some challenges in Fergus Falls. And I said, yeah, we've had the Target store closing and Herberger's, and we're going to get through those. And said, we have the decommission of our coal-powered plant, which is going to be 7 to 8% of our tax base. And she said, she stopped me right there. She says, well, that's what I want to talk to you about. We have 2 of our 3 XL Energy coal burning sites decommissioning, and we're losing 72% of our tax base. So I thought, wow. Anyway, it's good to get out and sometimes talk to other community leaders and mayors in the real world, because we're all facing challenges. But the important thing is how we can overcome those challenges. So again, I'm really excited about tonight. Thanks you guys so much for being here, and help me welcome Mayor Rita Albrecht.
Thank you, Ben. Thanks for that introduction and those kind words. I really appreciate that. So I'm here with Tiffany Fedig, and Tiffany, I'll let her introduce herself. Do you want to just tell us who you are?
Sure. I work with...
Turn it on.
Just talking. Okay. Is that better?
No. Oh, was that's better.
I'll try to set it in here. Yeah, I'm Tiffany Fedig. I work with 2 organizations in the Bemidji community, Headwaters Regional Development Commission, and I manage revolving loan funds for small business loans in our 5-county region. And I also work with Greater Bemidji Inc., the economic development organization for the Bemidji region, and manage the Launchpad, which is a co-working site and entrepreneur support hub in our downtown area.
Thanks, Tiff. So what Tiff and I are going to do is just do a little bit of Dog and Pony Show. to share a little bit about what we do in Bemidji for economic development. And I know that Dave Hengel is who you really invited, but Tiffany is so much better looking, and I thought the ride over would be a lot of fun with her. So Dave had to go to the county board for something or another, but we're happy that Tiff could join us because she really is boots on the ground with the Launchpad and our entrepreneurial effort, so that's good. But I just want to say before I start, I want to give a shout out to my good friend Jerry Ness, your school superintendent. I was in his wedding, believe it or not. That's the, you know what, Minnesota, one big small town, right? We all know somebody who knows somebody, and I think it's interesting. I see other familiar faces out here too, so thanks for coming. So we're going to take a few minutes just to talk a little bit about the differences between and the similarities and some ideas of what we do. And just let me say, preface the whole thing, that we don't necessarily have it all figured out. We might have some good ideas to share, but boy, oh boy, we certainly have our bumps in the road as well. And Ben knows that because, can you hear me? Ben knows that because I call him too, and we text back and forth. So, you know, Otter Tail County, I've been told that there are 1,000 lakes. You have the most lakes of any county in the state. This thing wants to feedback a little bit at me, so you know, give me tips if you have any tips for me. And Bemidji we have about 425 lakes within a 25-mile radius. So if you want to just bring up that presentation, we'll take a look at some of the things that make us special, as well as some of the things that make you special too. So we both kind of lake area, right? And Lake Bemidji is about a 6,400 acre lake, so it's a big lake. And we're also the first city on the Mississippi, as you know. Oh, did it go away?
Go ahead and put that microphone right next to your mouth.
You mean that works better this way? Yes. Okay, thanks for that little tip. And he found it, and he's going to get it started for me. So I started to think about, Ben and I often kid back and forth that, you know, Fergus Falls is just like Bemidji, and he'll say, Bemidji is just like Fergus Falls. So I thought I'd look and see what are some of the similarities and differences. So maybe go to the next slide. And in Bemidji, our population, these are from U.S. Census Quick Facts that I just got. And our population in the 2016 estimated as 14,942. You're at 13,419, so pretty close there. Our percent non-white is 20.3%. Most of that is Native American. Your percent non-white, 3.5. So a much more homogenous community over there. You're all Norskis, right? Or Finnish or German or something. Ja, doch, das stimmt. So, and we have about the same number of households, just around 5,900. Your mobility rate, what is the mobility rate? Well, the mobility rate is the number of persons that were living in the same house a year ago. And a mobility rate is interesting because that kind of gives you a sense of what's the transitional nature of the people that live in your community. So look at what Bemidji's is. It's about almost 30%. So that means 1/3 of the people in our community, they didn't live in that same house last year. And that speaks to a bit to our population that's low income, our population that is our student population, but also just the fact that people are not finding secure and safe housing that seems to be working for them. So it's transitional in nature, whereas your mobility rate is under 20%. So that just makes your population a little bit more stable. So a lot to love about that. Our median household income, look at Bemidji, $33,680. You have $10,000 more in your households annually than we do in ours. And so that makes a big difference in how we do business in Bemidji. To a certain extent, our ability to levy taxes and to promote different things, because we know it's a low-income population that we're dealing with there. And so the state, what do you think the state median household income is? This is 2016 estimated dollars. It's 20,000 more than you, 30,000 more than us. It's over $63,000. Yeah, that's a lot, right? So the retail sales, it's interesting. I know you've been having a little heartburn because first you lost Target and then you lost Herberger's, right? So in Bemidji, our retail sales in the city were $605 million. And that represents about 86% of the sales in Beltrami County were made in Bemidji. That means we're the big dog in the county. That's where everybody comes to shop. Compared to look at Fergus Falls. You had about 452 of actually more sales in Otter Tail County, but your percentage is right around 58%. So you have competition that's different than what we have in Bemidji. So a little bit of dissimilar retail scenario than we have. And 87 counties in Minnesota, we rank 86th out of 87, which is for health outcomes and health factors. And that's challenging for us. So we have high rates of diabetes, overweight, health disease, babies born drug affected, a lot of things like that, which come along sometimes with a low-income population, right? And so those are some of the things that we're dealing with. You guys, your county health rank is 52. You're doing absolutely wonderful. You guys are a healthy bunch up here. That seems like it might be a great marketing aspect for you to say, this is a healthy place to live, right? So I wanted to just share a little bit of how we're the same and how we're different, because I think sometimes people look to Bemidji and think we have it all figured out and everything's coming up roses there, but we do have our challenges as well. Don't always talk about sort of those dirty little secrets of our challenges, do we? Especially if you're the chamber or the economic development director, but we just want to recognize that there is some of that going on. We also have a 4-year university where you have a 2-year technical college, as I recall, M-State, right? Is that right? Yeah. So let's go to the next slide. Just a little bit more about Bemidji, and I have to tell you that the only slide I made in that in this presentation was that last one we just saw. So I'm going through Dave Hengel's report, and then I'm going to do the first 5 slides, and Tiff's going to pick up and give us a big finish at the end. So the thing that we have going on is not only are we about a 14,500 population, but our region, I mean, within a very short distance of Bemidji, we have a lot of people. Maybe you do too, but they're all call their Moorhead their hometown, right? So there's not any other big towns within 100 to 150 mile radius of us. So that gives us a little bit of a unique perspective. We do have, I mentioned our sales were in the county were over 700 million, but our goods and services altogether add up to more than $1 billion. So that makes us a pretty big economic engine in the north central part of the state. And our employment has been growing in the state. And in fact, our population is growing. The county population has been growing 3.7% in Beltrami County. In Otter Tail County, it's been growing 1.4%. In Bemidji, our city, in the 2016 estimates, since the 2010, we've grown 5% in Bemidji, our population. A lot of people moving in. Fergus Falls has grown about 2.1%. So a little bit different there on the side of growth, right? Some differences for us. We have hundreds of jobs available, even though like it says, we've been growing jobs. We have hundreds of jobs available that we can't fill. And anybody else have that problem? Everybody has that problem, right? I don't care what community I drive around to, and I work in the northwest area of the state for my day job, and there's a help wanted sign at every business and C-store and barbershop wherever I go. So do employers here have trouble getting help? Any kind of nods or no? You're okay? Sometimes? Right, yeah. Okay. Let's go to the next slide, and that is called the shifting economic development. The shifting economic development is kind of what I want to look at here. So as we know, companies can locate anywhere they want to nowadays, right? And the main thing that's going to bring them somewhere is whether or not there's a worker there. So it's a race for talent that we're talking about. And so we asked the question, why Bemidji? Why should Bemidji, be the place where someone would select? And we like to talk about what we do, and Dave phrases it as saying blurring the lines between community and economic development, and blurring the lines between economic development and workforce development. So it's working hand in hand with our community and talking about quality of place things. What makes a person want to move to us? And these are not new information for you. This is something you've heard before many times, I'm sure. But some of the things we've done, and Tiff will talk about that, is how do we partner with business and education to meet that that skills gap that we are all finding. You know, people want to have a job, they just don't have the training for the job that's available, right? So how do we address that? We'll talk about that a bit. And then successful communities are built, not born. In other words, your location won't necessarily give you the upper hand. You need to work at being the location of choice. And we'll talk about that. And Tiffany's message is going to be that innovation and entrepreneurship are key. And I have to say that that's not just for the business community. I have to say that's also for your elected officials, whether that's county boards or city councilors or school boards. We have to be innovative, and in some cases we have to be entrepreneurial, and we have to take risks. The kinds of things you might do include, you know, if you have a revolving loan fund or economic development fund that you would invest in something. Or in the case of Bemidji, we did some things like support grant applications so that we could expand our airport runway and those kinds of things. Or we purchased land on the South Shore of Lake Bemidji. The council at that time had no idea what they're going to do with it, but what's there now is Bemidji Regional Events Center, also known as Sanford Center. We had 6,000 people in that building on Saturday night for Brad Paisley, Chase Bryant, and Lindsay L. They were from all over the upper Midwest, and every hotel within the 30 to 50 mile radius was full. And the other part of that event center is that it's an anchor tenant there is Bemidji State University men's and women's hockey. And so it's a partnership in our community. And then the 150 acres of land on the south shore of the lake, the city purchased and redeveloped. And so we just opened a 70-unit apartment building, market rate apartment on the south side of the lake there. We have Country Inn and Suites was built, and also the Doubletree, as well as we have condos that I'm thinking they must have 20 or 30 homes there that have been built on that South Shore property that the city purchased. So that was a risk, and taking risks and being entrepreneurial means you have to be open to suggestions, having people come to you and say, here's an idea, and then you have to be willing to find a way to get to yes. And believe me, my council doesn't always want to go with me there. They hold me back sometimes and say, no, that's not something we're going to do. But I want to encourage you to think about how do you help your council be a little bit more entrepreneurial and take those kinds of risks. And then I think the last thing I want to talk about is just some of the major investments that we've had, community investments that we've made over the past few years. Certainly having a broadband presence and making sure everybody has the ability to you know, get on the internet and do that kind of business. As I mentioned, our airport, we expanded our runway. We got grants from the FAA to build and remodel our terminal and then build a jet bridge, which is, instead of having to walk outside and go up the stairs in the middle of winter, it's connected to the building now and is more accessible as well as being more comfortable. The Sanford Center, I mentioned that one. Sanford Health is purchased a system that purchased our local hospital, and they've made several investments in town. And then, of course, our school district. We passed a bond referendum. It took a couple times to get it done, but we're in the midst of building an upper elementary school there that is, I believe, going to open this fall. I'm hopeful. So just my last slide. One more, I guess I get. And just to focus on what Greater Bemidji's model for economic development is. And Dave could tell this story better, but I'll just share that you need to have an economic toolbox where you can think outside the box and be creative in some of the ideas that you come up with to you know, attract. But for me, it's quality of place. It's you know, making your community a place you want to that people want to live, but also what is it that makes your community different than everywhere else? You know, what's your sweet spot, if you will? I know that there's maybe some Forward Fergus Falls folks in the room who've talked about that. What's the sweet spot and what's our special spot for Fergus Falls? And I encourage you to think about that a lot. So I'm going to give it to Tiffany.
Let me just continue on with those 4 focus areas, and then I'll give you some examples of how Bemidji has done things in these areas through Greater Bemidji's work in partnership with the city, the chamber, and other partners in the area. One of the big ones, and one that I'm closely involved in, is really being the place people want to go to start a business, being very startup friendly. And this is probably something I don't think even 3 years ago people would not have considered the community to be startup friendly. It was something that took a lot of work. It took recognizing the value of the entrepreneurs that are in the community right now, primarily young entrepreneurs, and what they're doing, and really capitalizing on their talents and their willingness to be a part of the community and to give back to the community. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, but it's really making sure that the community is friendly to people that want to start a business or move their business to the area, and take down those roadblocks to get them there. Another focus area that's very important is just grow and retain the talent that's already in the community. Especially with the university there, we're doing what we can to try to keep those students from graduating and moving on. We also recognize the benefit of having them graduate, move on, but realize that their experience in Bemidji was so wonderful that when they get their experience elsewhere, they're excited to come back and share that with the community on a permanent basis. We've done a lot of things that are in the training realm around that, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then the third one is really just a very common economic development role for an organization such as Greater Bemidji, is just to be that promoter. And so that's giving tours to potential businesses that come to the area that want to expand. So just being that kind of the cheerleader for the community. So we understand the value of continuing to play that role, and spinning the positives of the community to the outside visitors. And then the other one is, making sure that economic toolbox is full of as many options as possible. Whether that is revolving loan funds, potentials that the city can offer in TIF or other incentives, and also just being very welcoming to anyone that has an idea, and being able to help them through that process to make it reality. So if you want to go over actually 2 slides. First, in the first focus area, the growing talent and retaining talent area, Greater Bemidji's been on the cutting edge of trying to solve this problem of growing talent. And it has worked very closely with high schools and local manufacturers primarily in the area. And I'd say in the area, I'm talking all the way up to even Fergus Falls and beyond. Thief River Falls and beyond. So it's a stealing your people. No. So it's been a pretty large region that's been able to partake in this initiative, and it's called MI2, or Minnesota Innovation Institute, and it's really a training program that's the dollars are coming into Greater Bemidji through grants, a variety of grant programs, primarily through the state of Minnesota, and are going into training, customized training for individuals that want to go into the manufacturing area. So they're working, there's actually a council of a variety of corporate businesses in the area that gather and give input to MI2 trainers as to what kind of training do we need that's not being met by the 2-year college or the university, and how can we customize that to meet the needs of those employers. And so that council has really been active. I think this program's been going on for about 5 years or so. I'd say about 5 years, and there's 1,000 trainees have gone through the program already, and the placement rate is extremely high. And these are individuals that maybe didn't even receive a degree in high school. and are placed in jobs where they're making $40,000 to $60,000 outside of that training program. And the training can be from as little as 3 months, I believe, up to about a year. So these are certifications that they get at the end of the program. So this has been in partnership with the IDEA Circle, which is a for-profit training entity in the Bemidji area. And also you probably ask, well, where are they doing this training? They're actually doing it at NTC, our Northwest Technical College. They leased space from the technical college and have partnered on equipment that was needed that the college didn't have in its possession already to put some of these trainings on. So it's been a great opportunity to take people that have either left the workforce because of downsizing or other reasons, or have maybe been those B, C, or D students in high school and just couldn't find their niche, but they're finding it in the manufacturing realm, and it's helped a lot of our manufacturers in our area.
Maybe I'll just add, thanks. Maybe I'll just add that part of this was paid for by MJS Minnesota Job Skills Partnership grants, which probably some are familiar with, and then also the equipment was paid for by the partner businesses. So we have CNC machine folks and people learning HVAC, and so they're being placed, electricians and whatnot. They're being placed in businesses like Potlatch and Team Industries in Bagley,
Marvin Windows.
Yeah. So it's just RDO was a partner out of Park Rapids. So a number of different businesses helped put this together, and I think that's what we have to do to solve the skills gap now, is we have to get businesses to partner with us and with education to make it happen.
And so we're seeing the success in the manufacturing realm. We are looking at, well, what are the opportunities in some of the other industries, healthcare being one of them, and how could we partner with healthcare companies in the area to provide the customized training that they need to get the workforce they're looking for. So there's a variety of other avenues this could take in the future.
Do you want to talk about Lumberjack Academy?
Yeah, I can.
Since we have the school superintendent in the audience, we'll talk about the Lumberjack Academy. I'll pick on Jerry all night long here.
Yeah, the Lumberjack Academy, this is, I think, the first full year of its existence, but it's a program through the high school at BHS, and it is a kind of a career path for individuals to choose as they're as a student in 9th through 12th grade, where they can identify early on, as early as 9th grade, that they have an interest in manufacturing, or they have an interest in healthcare, they have an interest in IT, or entrepreneurship. I believe there's 13 different focus areas right now, or academies, and then there is a curriculum that's put together that says, okay, if you're going down this path in this academy, here's the coursework that you would go through at the end. Some of them, you actually get a certificate, like you would in the MI2 program, that would give you some credentials even upon graduation. There also will be mentorship and internships along the way, and job shadow opportunities. It's a real big partnership with the business community, so they are linked very closely with each of these academies according to their needs. So it's been, it's early in its existence, but so we started out with 13. I think they're adding 3 to 5 more this next year, and the participation just in year 1 exceeded expectations. So there's I can't remember what the percentage was, but I think they were expecting maybe 20 to 30% of the population, high school population, to be part of the academies, and I think it was over 50%, if I remember right.
So just an unconventional way that economic development can partner to meet businesses' needs that are existing businesses in your region. Okay, and as I touched on, as one of the support focus areas is the entrepreneur support and development. And 3 years ago is when this really kicked off in the Bemidji area. We purchased a building, Greater Bemidji did. It is called the Mayflower Building, one of the historic buildings in downtown Bemidji in the Union Square area, close to the river. And this is a building that had been very underutilized for quite some time. If you're familiar with Bemidji, you might have visited when it was a sports bar years ago. But since the sports bar went out, it was a charter school for a while, it was a church most recently, but not utilized at its potential.
Greater Bemidji with the help of the community in a variety of different capacities, was able to purchase the building and create this space for several tenants. We have Team Industries, one of the local manufacturers who's headquartered in Bagley, has their R&D engineers on the upper level. We have BSU and their off-site campus presence in the facility. So they have their marketing assistance program where they have BSU students that work on feasibility studies and market analysis for businesses. And an internship coordinator use that suite in the building. And then we have another engineering firm called EXP Solutions, and they do have do software testing for firms like NASA and Honeywell. So those are the main tenants, but the space wasn't fully utilized with just those tenants, but that certainly helped to cash flow the ongoing operations of the building. So the idea came about to explore the idea of co-working space. And not just co-working for the sake of co-working, but as a way to develop a community of entrepreneurs, people that want to grow their business, start their business, commune with other people in similar realms. And so the space was on just the main floor of the building, which was, a pretty minimal space. It was a nice atrium space, a beautiful boardroom, and one small conference room. And for 2 years, we utilized this space for co-working, and we had about 25 members at our peak. Some of those were remote workers, so they worked for a company in the cities or in Seattle and just needed a laptop to get their work done. Others were in the startup phase, and they were working on their business plan, meeting with the small business consultants, coming to trainings that we'd offer. It was just a great way to be close to those that could encourage them in their process. And a lot of professionals, consultants, or other people that might want to use meeting space. So the co-working space in and of itself was, a great way to bring some money in and to bring in people to the space that could use some entrepreneur support activities. But it really became this front door to the Bemidji community for those that are looking to start a business or expand their business. The community had a lot and has a lot of resources to give to business owners, but they've always been very scattered. So anyone that says, geez, I want to start a business, there was no one place to go. They'd often come to my office at Headwaters Regional Development Commission. They might go to we have a Northwest Minnesota Foundation, they might end up there. They might go to their banker first, but there wasn't the go-to spot. This became that front door. So anyone that had a business idea, people knew to say, hey, tell them to go to Launchpad. So they come into Launchpad, and there we've really developed a network of people that can help. And it doesn't mean that they're all on site at any one moment, but we know where to send them. My assistance, with a financial background, I'm able to provide financial assistance when it comes to any loans that might be needed in that startup process. We have small business development consultants that come on site and will meet with clients when they don't want to meet, at their place of business or in their home. We offer trainings that are really just catered to the needs of the entrepreneurs at any one moment. And the space itself. So a lot of people were needing that meeting space. So we found that it was incredible what kind of partnerships and collaborations among the business community were happening just because the space was being provided. So right now we're at about 45 to 50 members. I'd say we're probably at about 15 that regularly use the space on some level. A lot of people are members because they just like what we have, what we're offering, and want to use the services on a very rare basis, not necessarily to come and work. So they're buying in on the whole idea that this community is here to support business and they want to be a part of that. One of the big things that that really kicked this off was we took a van load of our entrepreneurs to the Million Cups event in Fargo 3 years ago. And afterwards, we were amazed. It was a full house, and I think it's called the Stage Auditorium. We were blown away by the presentation and just the energy in the room. Then we did meet with Greg Tavine and his group, and they kind of told us, well, this is how we kind of got to this point, what the Million Cups means, and what it could do for you. And he did provide, you might have heard of this book, but he gave us this book and he said this is kind of our Bible. It's called The Startup Communities by Brad Feld. And in here it really talks about how Boulder, Colorado became kind of this tech center and entrepreneur support or hub, and it's really an interesting book. And you read through it and you see all these details about the tech community, and I look back at Bemidji and I think, we don't really have that culture. We don't have a lot of IT in our community, so does it pertain? But if you look at the fundamentals, it does. And so we took a lot of the advice out of this book and decided to start our own, what we call Entrepreneurs Meetup, which is a takeoff of A Million Cups. We aren't sanctioned by A Million Cups because we kind of wanted to do it our own Bemidji way. But we still hold it every Wednesday morning, like A Million Cups does, at 8 o'clock. And we hear at least one person speak about their business. So they might be pitching an idea for a business that doesn't exist, or they might be telling us about their existing business and telling their entrepreneur story, successes and challenges they've had along the way, some of their current opportunities or challenges that are before them right now. And that's where the meat of the discussion happens. And usually for a good half hour of that discussion, we have our feedback from the attendees is given to that presenter, and issues are solved, or opportunities are presented, and connections are made. And that entrepreneur then goes away with some real valuable information to move their business forward. So we've been doing that consistently weekly for 3 years now. We just celebrated our 3-year anniversary. And it's been really powerful. We get about 30 to 45 people in attendance. We've had up to 65, and it's creating such a support network among the entrepreneurs. And it's not only for entrepreneurs; anyone can come in at any time. And so we get professionals, we get just community people, we get a lot of people in our mentor category that are retired and just want to still feel involved, and it's been real powerful. Anything you want to add to that?
I only want to add that as you move to the next slide, so we got a grant and we invested some money into the remodeling of the lower level, the garden level, which this is a building that's kind of like half in the ground, so you have large windows, and there's an opportunity for expanded space for the lunch bed.
Yeah, so now since we moved to the lower level and expanded to that, we have about 45 members, as I said, and the space is very typical to what you see in other co-working spaces around the country and world. So it has what we call campsites. So we have some dedicated space for people that want to work there full time. So we have about 6 campsites, and those are fully occupied right now. And then we have real just flexible space, table space, that people can bring their laptop and just get work done. So it's real unique, Google-esque, I say, type space. The third focus area is just the promoting of the greater Bemidji region. And one of the things that I'd say pretty blessed to have experienced in the last year or so is having the Twin Cities Business Magazine do a feature on us. And they came up to the community, they did extensive interviews, and really focused on the uniqueness of the community, really focused a lot on the entrepreneurship piece, the gigazone piece, our high-speed internet, and some of those things that really set us apart in northern Minnesota. And that hits a lot of people within the state, and it's been probably the best advertising that we could possibly ask for. Those magazines, we're giving them out to anyone that shows interest in the community. They're receiving that magazine to hear it from a third party. It's not coming from someone who's vested in the community. It's coming from someone outside that is looking from it from an objective standpoint. So it's been very valuable to have some of those resources. And we've had others like Lake Time Magazine and a variety of other magazines, and also just had NPR do a spot on us. And so we've been very fortunate by the publicity that we've received just outside of the community, and we do our best to kind of leverage those and keep record of it so we can pass that information on to others.
Minnesota Monthly just named Bemidji Best Minnesota Town 2017, and that's pretty exciting. And then we were just named Hockey Day Minnesota for 2019, and all of those opportunities play into our whole ethic of never miss a chance to give an interview or promote the community in some way.
The final example that we have here for how do we add to our economic development toolbox, one of the things that we've done recently, Dave Hengel and I have put together what we call the Startup Guide for Bemidji, and it's just really, we call it 1, 2, 3 startups. So we're trying to make it Simple and sweet. Someone comes in, they have a great idea, and it's like, what's my first step? I have no idea. Or I've made this step, but what's my next step? So we put together a guide, and it's going to be online too. We're working on that version. But here's a hard copy that people are handed upon coming into the Launchpad. And one of the critical pieces of this is that they receive a navigator, which would be Dave or I, that's going to help them through the process. We're not going to help them necessarily write their business plan, but as they get stuck along the way, whether that's maybe at City Hall to get their license, or a zoning issue, or it's at their banker's office trying to get financing, wherever they might get stuck along the way, they can always come back to us and say, okay, here's where I'm struggling. Do you have any suggestions? Do you have anyone I could talk to? We'll get them through that step on to the next. And it's specific to Bemidji, so it tells them, get in contact with a small business development consultant. They will meet you here at Launchpad. Come to the meetups every Wednesday. Start getting connected in the entrepreneur community. Here's some Facebook sites or websites you should be checking out. So it's very specific to that area. One of the areas that we're hoping to develop a little further is, assisting them on the licensing, building permit, and zoning side. Sometimes that can be a difficult process to go through, and having us as navigators to help them through that process and work with the city to make that as smooth a process as possible is really vital to the situation, especially if you have someone that's coming outside the community, have experience with other communities. You want to make sure that they're having the best experience they can in our community. So that's one of the things we've added to our toolbox recently.
Crystal ball. Yeah. Just a couple examples, and maybe I'll take the first one because the rail corridor is an area about 15 acres on the south edge of our downtown between what we think of as the Mississippi River, Lake Irvin. The Mississippi comes through Lake Irvin and into Lake Bemidji and out again. And the rail corridor, you can see it on the very the southeast corner of this picture, lower right-hand side. That's the Mississippi. That's as much Mississippi as we get in the first city on the Mississippi. It's kind of odd. And part of our thing is that we've turned our back on the Mississippi a bit, and we want to try and change that. So this area is a former Sioux Line rail corridor. It's about 15 acres. The city purchased it back in 2000, I think, for a utility corridor. And it's kind of just sat there. It's been snow storage. There's buildings there that we lease back. Some industrial type uses that you might think of in a rail corridor, and the historic James J. Hill depot is there, which houses our History Museum and Historical Society, the last depot that James J. Hill built. And so it's got some historical qualities, but it's been sort of the sort of the sore thumb of the downtown, and we see that as an opportunity. So talking about that entrepreneurial aspect again of a city and a risk. Since it's been there so long, I said, we have to get something done. I kind of pushed the council on this a bit, and I said, we don't have the capacity on staff to really develop this. There's contamination there and whatnot, and it's an interesting site to try to redevelop it. So we actually hired the St. Paul Port Authority. You might know that they redeveloped the site where I think the new soccer stadium is, and maybe the Army, that place up in Roseville, So they have a lot of experience in these kinds of redevelopment of contaminated sites and infill development. And so they're working with us on that. And our vision there is to complement our downtown, which is kind of a cute little compact 3x3 block downtown with some shopping and probably 12 or 15 independent bar and restaurants that are places to eat. But we know that when someone lives downtown, they spend $10,000 more in downtown annually than someone who doesn't live down there. And so we recognize that moving people into the downtown is one way to make sure our downtown continues to be robust and vibrant and all of that. And so our vision here is to have maybe a little bit of commercial on one corner of this, but in general have this be some residential brownstones or townhome type places.
The next one is just the Riverwalk, which is part of that rail corridor, and it's really just to beautify that, make it something that's attractive. We do have the water treatment plant right across the road, so there are definite challenges with that site. But it's not usable now. It is also where you find a lot of our homeless in the community hiding out. And it's close to the Mayflower building where we're located. So there's a lot of things that could be done to beautify that site and to also recognize the history there, the Indian burials that are there, and a lot of things that this green space that could be provided. But there are challenges because there is a large commercial building right on that site, and it was recently purchased, and renovations are happening to it. So it's kind of on the wish list, and we will see how things can proceed in the future. But it's that making that wish list and dreaming and trying to figure out solutions for issues that this gives an example of.
Yeah, part of our goal here is that across the street off the picture. I'm going to go back one. To the north, it's just outside the picture there. On the top of the picture is our Paul and Babe statue, and that Business 197 through town, Paul Bunyan Drive, is a very huge barrier for people getting either from Paul and Babe. You drive in from Illinois, the kids pile out of the car, you look around, take a picture of Paul and Babe. Now what, right? Well, we want to get them across the street into our downtown, but that street is a very large physical barrier, and people don't know what's on the other side of the street. Should I take a chance and walk over there? And so what we'd like to do is connect a place under the Mississippi River Bridge so that much like your river walk down here, you can go underneath and not have to go over the top of that. We do think there's an opportunity with that building. There's like a 20-foot lean-to on the backside. We've actually been talking to the new owner, asking, if you could take that off and make a deal with the city, we could create some pedestrian way back there. Maybe we could put a mural up or something. So we haven't lost hope. We're going to try and think out of the box and see what else could we do even with that. And that property owner is not opposed to that. And we've also got someone interested in providing some support, financial support for that. Yeah. So we're still thinking about that one.
The other project that's been a hot topic in Bemidji this year is Sanford Sports and Wellness Campus. Sanford Health has provided a gift to the community of $10 million, and this is a project that they would like to see happen. They see it as exactly what's needed in the community through a lot of research that they've done, and for twofold: one, for the community, and also selfishly for their own benefit, to be able to attract the talent that they need to be successful in the community. A lot of the questions that people have when they come to a cold community like ours is, well, what do you do in the winter? And we don't have a lot of indoor space, activity space, so this would be a huge solution to that. So it would include an aquatic center that would have water slides and lazy river and all that, as well as a big bubble that would include a lot of court space for a variety of different activities, fitness rooms, track, and all of that. In addition to that, there's proposed ice rinks too, 2 sheets of ice. So the community has been weighing in on this, and I have to say somewhat controversial, but I think they all see that this is a great opportunity for the community, so we're trying to figure out how do you structure it to be the most successful it can with as little negative impact as possible. This is going to take, $10 million will not make this facility happen. It's going to take a lot of local support from a significant contribution on the part of the community. So that piece in of itself it will be an important piece, but we feel very positive that that's going to happen. So hope to see something come in the very near future with this.
So that's all we have. I'm sorry that it took us so long to talk about it, and we look forward to your questions, and I think there's a couple of other panel members coming up to join us. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. So let's see. I'll let you buy it.
Yeah, so we can relieve this if we want in the middle. Is this working? I guess it does. On everybody's table there are cards and some pencils. If you've got a question, write it down, and we will have another microphone up here if we have time for people to come up and personally ask, but we'll also collect these cards with the questions on them and then ask them of the panel. So Anthony, you can start.
Thank you. I had a couple of kind of things that I was obviously listening to you, and I've had the opportunity of going up to Bemidji on a number of occasions, some personal and private, and enjoying Bemidji and the lake and the surrounding area. But recently, obviously, I went up to the Mayflower building, and I think one of the things perhaps one of you could do is just explain how Greater Bemidji and the city work together.
I can probably use this one. So the city of Bemidji traditionally has not had an economic development director, and we haven't had a community development director. We had one for about 18 months. But we don't currently have either one of those positions, and we have since about 1989, 80 something, maybe mid-80s, we have contracted with a private nonprofit economic development organization, which is now called Greater Bemidji, and that is a member organization, and they are supported by getting investors from the community, including the city and the county, and large entities like Bemidji State University, Sanford Health, as well as business communities, banks, and all of that. And so the city currently has, we've had, our investment has grown over time from probably 10 to 15 to 20 and then 25, and it currently is at $30,000 a year that we invest in Greater Bemidji. I think Beltrami County invests 35, and so we consider them our economic development arm. And Dave Hengel, we have a development meeting with city staff every 2 weeks with our planners, our building official, our PD, our fire, our city manager, our attorney. And Dave sits in on those development meetings as if he were a staff person and weighs in and gets the most recent updates on what's coming up. Because not all the development comes through Dave, it often comes to the city manager or the building official or the planner, right?
Thank you.
So I want to thank both Tiffany and Rita for coming here. It's a drive, and you've got a lot of things going on, so it's very nice of you to come, and especially to share your secrets. So we're looking forward to replicating some of your success. Could you comment a little bit? Anthony kind of asked you about organization. Is funding a challenge for your economic development efforts? Obviously, a lot of it has to come from private businesses. And what has been the main sales point that you've been able to use to raise the funds that you need to do these projects?
I'll start, and just to give you an idea, the budget of Greater Bemidji is about $250,000, and annually. And the annual budget of Greater Bemidji is about $250,000. There's only 2 staff people. I contract, so I'm a contract staff in addition. I believe there's about 76 investors total. Again, with I believe contributions from the city and the county being the largest contributors. They go all the way down to $500 contributions from smaller businesses. I'd say most of the programming that we talked about is funded through other grants because we are a 501c3. So we do seek grants whenever possible to actually do the programming that is being offered. The MI2 Launchpad does have some income coming in, but most of that is coming through other grants. Okay.
And one other thing, they're risk takers because they're economic development. And so about 3 or 4 years ago, Sanford Health said, we want to build a clinic in Bagley. Would you help us? And so there was an agreement made with Sanford Health and Greater Bemidji that we would build the building and they would have a lease purchase on it. Is that how it goes? No. Anyway, they built it and we have the lease. I'm not sure how
No,
it goes.
we built, Greater Bemidji built it, owns
Right.
it, and leases it to Sanford Health.
That's it, right, and so that's paying off the construction loan, so that will be in perpetuity as long as that healthcare system wants to have their, and then they also have a building in the industrial park that was built way back in 1995 when it was first originally started as a way to attract a call center. They built a building, an office building in the industrial park that's a call center, and that building is currently either for sale or lease because that Business Synergy Solutions has consolidated their operations into their Texas office, and so they have that building free and clear, and they've been leasing that for years. So there's a little bit of income, if you will, from rental income, including the operations of the Mayflower based on the launch pad.
And in regards to the question about how do you get investors to come on board, I'm impressed with how well the board is. 26 members, I believe. So it's a very large board, and it's very diverse of the community. And I also would say it's kind of the heavy hitters. I mean, those that really make an impact in the community. And those individuals, along with Dave Hengel, every 3 years go out to the local businesses and organizations and ask for support for a 3-year commitment. So they usually team up, Dave and one other board member go out to, a huge list of businesses in the community and say, this is what we've done with the money for the last 3 years. Here's how we've used those dollars, and here's what we're intending to do in the future. So they do spend a lot of time on that piece.
I have a clarification question. How are you using the term investor? Are these people putting money in every year with the expectation that the city is going to get better? They're not expecting a return, am I correct?
No, and it's just their membership, is they call it their investment into the community. And so, yeah, it's an investment in Greater Bemidji and the community to do the work of economic development. But their return is more customers at the bank, somebody rent their apartment building, that kind of thing.
So you mentioned risk-taking a couple of times, probably both of you did. How do you gauge that, or what's your philosophy? You can take too many risks and invest in too many bad ventures and go broke, or you can take too few risks and nothing ever happens. How do you approach that?
Tiff's the banker in the room here for me. We contract with Tiffany. She works at Headwaters Regional Development Commission, the Headwaters Housing Finance Corporation, manages our revolving loan funds. So the city has some revolving loan funds that we loan out to businesses. Recently, we've loaned to Harmony Food Co-op. They renovated a new building, and we loaned them money. We also loan money for someone to relocate the downtown meat market, and so our focus has been kind of downtown and also at the South Shore. So, but we have had loans go bad. Just this past year, there was maybe Tiff wants to tell the story, but the city had loaned $400,000 in this very, I call it a funding cocktail with lots of different lenders and lots of money. We had a very small piece of it, $400,000, that we're not going to get back because it went bankrupt, and that was not tax dollars. That was our revolving loan fund that came from federal grants in the past. So maybe Tiff wants to talk about that. How do we? She reviews our loans for us before the city approves them. So we're not bankers.
Yeah, and I work in the GAP realm, and you're a lender of last resort. So they have exhausted all options with, equity investment, traditional bank financing, all those things have been explored. So those need to be vetted before they come to the city or the Headwaters Regional Development Commission, Greater Bemidji as a revolving loan fund. So before we tap any of those sources, we're looking at to make sure that those dollars get out into the banking community if possible. Traditional lenders. And so if they're coming to us, then we're really looking at what's the impact to the community. So it might be, are we creating jobs? If not, what's the quality of place that this potential project is going to generate? And we follow the guidelines of the policy to the best of our ability, and knowing that GAP lenders are always in a subordinate position, almost always, and there's going to be some losses. And if you don't have losses, it probably means that the community isn't taking the risks that they should, because those are kind of what those dollars are intended for. So yeah, the community has experienced a loss recently, and they're struggling to understand what the whole revolving loan fund idea is about, and that's an educational piece on our behalf to make sure they understand where those dollars came from and what their intended use is. So we'll be doing some more to clarify that in the future, I think, with the community.
And I'll just share that one of our loans is to the person who bought the Pomaida building, which we wanted to tear down. But, you know, he was renting, it's a furniture store, and he was renting a spot. And now that he has made that investment, we know he's going to stay in our downtown. And that, we think, is a really good payback for that $100,000 loan that we provided when he first moved to town. This is a furniture company that has stores all over North Dakota and also now in Bemidji. And we wanted to really help secure him in our downtown as an anchor store. And that was one way that we did that.
I have another question. We obviously in Fergus we have a port authority. Do you have a port authority in Bemidji, and if so, how do you use it? But the nod would say no. Okay, well that answers that question quickly. Then my next question was a follow-up on obviously Greater Bemidji, as you say, has kind of like 26 board members. Obviously, you know, sometimes just even the city council is like herding cats. To obviously, as Rita knows, how do you find consensus of opinion when you have that much of a diverse board? What are the
Tiff can weigh in too, because she watches from the sidelines, but it is difficult. In fact, there is a sort of a break right now, and I'm a little bit familiar with some of the sticky challenges that Fergus Falls has. Bemidji has them too, and right now there's this a little bit of a break in our communications and also our understanding of how Greater Bemidji is helping serve the city, and in particular city council is questioning, you know, what's the value we're getting there. And so the board is not of one mind. There, you know, 26 very strong folks in the room, including folks from banking, industry, healthcare, and whatnot. And so it is difficult for Dave to get them all on the same page, but I think it takes a lot of keeping them informed and preparing them and helping them understand the reason for this, that, or the other. And one of the things that we're talking about right now is recalibrating, and that is the idea that, you know, what we kind of gotten, things are peaks and valleys, right? But you want the trend line to be going up, right? And so we've had our peaks and valleys, and right now we're kind of on a plateau, and so we're trying to figure out what's the next step. And so having a strong vision is what I think keeps you on track to herd your cats.
Yeah, and this whole recalibrating is going to be an envisioning time where the community comes together, and there's going to be a lot of listening sessions. So we're hearing from the community what the needs are, and so everyone feels they have a voice in that. So all those listening sessions will be an important part of figuring out what the next steps are, where Greater Bemidji's mission and vision need to go in the future.
We're running out of time. I wanted to look at these. Well, we can be here all night, I guess. Well, no, I guess I've got customers coming. I have just one quick question, and then maybe Steve can go through these questions from the audience. I understand that Delta Dental is moving or has moved from Detroit, Michigan to Bemidji with 150 jobs. How did you accomplish that?
That was a 4-year process, so it doesn't happen quickly, so you have to have patience. You know, Deed put out a call for proposals back in December of 2012, I believe, or 2014. And it said, unnamed company is looking to expand into Minnesota. They need to be within an hour, 100 miles or an hour within the metro, and Dave said, boy, I think I'm going to apply for that. And they said, you know, have you looked at a map? You know, you're not within an hour of the metro. And he said, but I am. I can get on the airplane and I can be down in the metro in 45 minutes. So we put together a proposal in the span of 2 weeks. It was kind of over Christmas vacation, hard to get people. But the upshot of it is we got a look-see. And then we had a great proposal, and then they came and visited. They narrowed it down to 6 communities. I think they came 3 or 4 times, and we showed them all the reasons why Bemidji was the best choice. We all, 25 of us helped with that effort, community members across the whole scope of the community, and we signed a non-disclosure, and we kept it a secret, and then they decided, you know what, you proved to us that this is the place for us to build. So they are going to build probably a 4-story office building, and they're going to move between 165 and 200 jobs, which will be for Delta Dental. It's the people you call when you need an insurance question answered, or it's a call kind of office. But great wages. I think their lowest wages are probably in the $15 or $15 range, and plus managers and ability to keep our Bemidji State University graduates at home as managers and business folks as well.
I believe one of the things the CEO of Delta Dental said was, we worked harder than anyone else. They could see how bad we wanted this, and that other communities didn't have to work so hard because this was something they'd see come through their doorway often. So they saw the initiative that we were taking, and all the other pieces were there. So they looked at us very seriously from the beginning.
So I'd like to put in a plug and thank you. The name of our sponsoring organization is Downtown Riverfront Council, and you've talked about the importance of a downtown effort, and we think the same is true of Fergus Falls. We've got a river, we've got our history, so thank you for that. A couple of questions from the audience are pretty specific, and since we're kind of out of time, I maybe won't ask those now, but encourage the people that are asking them to come up if you've got a few minutes afterwards. But there's a theme to a couple of these questions that I would ask you if we get time for a quick final question.
I guess I want to ask a question of the audience. We can always reschedule our board meeting, or have just 2 quick questions that we want to deal with it. And to me, this is fantastic information. I didn't know that you wanted to stay that long. So, oh, all right. So let's keep going. And if anybody wants to leave, they're free to do it. I assume, are we all done with the food? All right, no more food.
So there's a couple of questions here that are along the theme of, how do you take the first step? How do you get going? You've organized Greater Bemidji as a separate private company, aside from the city and the county, and in collaboration with the city and the county. So how did you really light that spark to get that separate type of entity going in Bemidji?
It was a long time ago, and what happened was a group of business owners said, you know what, we need to start talking about how to attract businesses here. And so they anteed up, some of the city fathers, bankers, and large, one of them was a large grocery owner, and others. They all threw in money into a pot, a substantial amount of money, $20,000, $25,000 to get this off the ground, hire a director, and just start. So it was an initiative that came from our business community that said, you know what, we're not doing anything here, and we're getting, if you're standing still, you're going backwards, right? Because everybody else is moving forward.
And on the downtown aspect, can you elaborate a little bit more on how you arrived? You mentioned the $10,000 that goes into the economy when somebody actually lives downtown, but what kind of went into your decision to focus on downtown in Bemidji, and what kind of community support have you gotten for that focus?
Well, in Bemidji, and I think probably in Fergus Falls too, when is Jean here from the chamber? I don't know if she's here or not, but if she were here, she would say, when people call and say, I want to come to Fergus, we're going to bring a tour there, or conference to Big Woods or whatever. What else is there to do? They do not want to go out to Walmart, right? They want to come to your downtown because that's fun and interesting and historic, and there's cute little boutique shops, and there's great restaurants like Bella Cucina, And so that's the same in Bemidji, and I think in most towns. Wadena comes to mind, Alexandria, they spent money on their downtown. If you don't pay attention to your downtown, you lose the heart of your community. That's your heart. And in Bemidji in particular, our sort of place where everything happens, if there's a proclamation or there's a wedding picture or there's something, where's it going to be? In front of Paul and Babe downtown. And so we know that downtowns take special attention in order to help them be successful, and I think the community supports that 100%, as well as our Bemidji Downtown Alliance, which is kind of our downtown organization.
So I'll ask one more based on the audience questions here, and there are two kind of related ones, and they're sort of international ones. Given the worker shortage, have you made any effort to reach out to maybe immigrants, maybe people leaving someplace like Puerto Rico for looking for new opportunities? And then on the financial side, there's a lot of foreign investment in the United States now. Is that something that have you reached the stage where you've considered approaching and pursuing any of that?
We have very minimal immigrant population. I believe Dave Hengel just did a study on it because we needed to put a non-English speaking plan together for a USDA grant, and we came up with 17 in the county, I think. So we just don't have that presence right now. I could see that certainly coming and changing in the years to come. International, not a lot, maybe a little bit on the forestry end, but outside of that, that hasn't really impacted us either.
Right, so what used to be Blandin is UPMI Blandin, which is a Finnish company, I believe, maybe. So some industries like that might have foreign investment, but in general, we haven't seen that. Now, we do have Concordia language villages. Anybody been there? Yes. That is our foreign presence, and of course, I don't know how many students they have go through there every year, but a lot, several thousands of students. And there are 15 different language villages there. And so we have that international aspect in our community, plus we have international students at Bemidji State University, but the immigrant population we don't have. Our minority population are Native Americans, and that's our goal, is to help them get trained and go to work and be successful and graduate from high school and all of those things. That's our focus.
Another question I had was, how much do you think having the regional airport has assisted Bemidji?
Yeah. Tiff can answer too, but I would say we have a handful of things in our community that are key and make a difference for us. One is Bemidji State University, hands down. I mean, their impact on our economy is probably between $150 and $200 million a year. And then the airport as well. So that's been a great investment, and part of that is driven by Bemidji State University, Concordia language villages. Governmental services like Indian Health Service. We have a regional DOT office. We have a regional DNR office. We have 3 tribes around us that travel back and forth to Washington a lot, because that's their relationship is with our federal government, and so those investments in our airport have paid off in spades as far as our ability to have Delta jets come in. We extended the runway. We didn't used to have that. We had prop air. Now we have 2 Delta jets every day coming in and out, going to MSP nonstop. In the summer we have 3 because of Concordia language villages, so we get to add an extra one, and it's a little easier to get back and forth. So the airport has been a key asset, and I think in recruiting that's one of our key assets as well.
I also have to say that there's certain entrepreneurs in our community that feel that we are underutilizing the airport, and the potential is much greater than we're actually realizing right now. There's recently been formed airport council that will made up of community members and people that have some vested interest in seeing the airport succeed and grow, come together and try to figure out ways to maximize that asset in our community. There's a lot of people that come through the doors of that airport that we don't even know exist, because they might have a cabin on a lake, somewhere near Bemidji, and being able to tap them in our community and get them more involved in what's going on would be a great asset. So also just making sure people feel really welcomed when they come in and know exactly what the community has to offer. So there's some exciting stuff going to be happening in the future there.
Could you tell us how you went about financing your arena, the Sanford Center? What elements went into that?
The city purchased the property and bonded for it, and then the arena is a partnership with Bemidji State University. Their John Glass Arena was going down. They were in WCHA, and they needed to have an arena, and so they partnered with the city to go to the legislature and ask for bonding dollars. So we received $2 million in planning dollars and then $23 million in bonding. But the cost of it is like $47 million or $46 million, whatever the slide said. So we had one of the key turning points in our community was when we passed a half-cent sales tax to renovate our parks and raised $10 million on that. And we went back to the voters and said, if we build this event center, would you extend that to help us retire the bond so we have a revenue bond? And they said yes. So we raised our money, our $10 million for parks. We renovated all our parks. They're wonderful parks. And now we're using that revenue stream to retire revenue bonds for that gap that the state bonding did not pay to construct the regional event center. We think that event center very conservatively has at least a $20 to $25 million annual impact in our community. And I can tell you that 3 new hotels have been built since that event center was built. Gas stations have all remodeled, restaurants have thrived and come online. So while it's hard to, pinpoint that that's the reason, we sense that economic activity and the turn in our community a lot of it is due to that event center and all the activity we have.
I'll ask you sort of a political question, but don't cringe because it's not that kind of political question. But everything that you're doing has to have the support of the voters. You could there are some of us old white guys maybe still around who think, boy, our taxes are too high already, and our sales tax is too high, and we're happy the way things are. But it sounds like you have the support of your voters to progress and move the community forward. Is that actually the case? And if so, how do you build momentum among the people that have to pay for these things to decide they want to pay for progress?
That's a challenge. They keep electing a progressive mayor. I'm in my 3rd term. This is my 6th year as mayor. And I would say that's one indicator. But honestly, we've been blessed with growth in Bemidji, and our tax base is growing. And so even though we've been able to raise the levy in real terms to like 6 or 7%, in net terms it's been a 1 or 2 or even a negative sort of effect on taxes because of the broadening of the tax base. So I'm a big fan of let's make the pie bigger, right? And spread the love around, and we can do more. And plus we have an awesome finance director who really makes us look good, so we almost always have a budget surplus. Our staff is wonderful at doing a great job and being innovative. So I think that's part of it, is just being able to be good stewards of tax dollars.
You spoke to the Rod. There's a microphone here. We can
hear you.
We can hear. Yeah, we'll give you the microphone.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's very stimulating. Okay. You spoke to the the wonderful internet that you have, which is something we haven't, I don't think, realized enough compared to what we're struggling with that. But would you speak to natural gas and rail, the quantity of natural gas, and also your rail service industry related?
Do you have a natural gas utility in Fergus Falls City? Do you have your own? Yeah, we don't have it. Not city. Okay. Yeah, ours are private. Minnesota Energy Resources is our natural gas provider, and we haven't had a problem with that. That's not been an issue for us to have. In the city of Bemidji, we have natural gas, but outside of that is propane. So that's the answer to that. Our rail is not an active rail as they are in farm country, let's just say that, or oil country. We have coal coming through ours, and about 4 times a day the train comes through, but we have an active rail line, a BNSF, that goes basically between the coal in North Dakota to the plant over there, and I want to say Grand Rapids perhaps, or maybe Superior. So that's the extent, kind of. We don't have a lot of farm product going through our community like you all have, and we don't have oil trains going through at this point at either. Generally, do you ever see them? I don't see them.
So to ask you about a subject you haven't touched on, we're pretty proud of our downtown arts community and our arts community in general in Fergus. We've got a number of galleries and performing arts center. Has that been a factor in your downtown and your success? And if so, tell us about that a little bit.
There it goes. We have a very vibrant arts community as well, and a variety of different facets. My husband actually is the choir director at the high school, so the performing arts side I'm pretty active in. We have the Headwaters School of Music. It's a nonprofit music center that's located in our downtown, has been around for many years. We just had the renovation of the Watermark Arts Center, and that's located in our downtown as well, that houses a large gallery as well as a new gallery for Native American art, and BSU has an off-site gallery as well. So that's been a great addition right across the street from the lake. So it's a prominent spot for people coming to the community to be able to see that. And the display of Native American art is something that we haven't really had in the community up till now. So that's really nice to see. We have a Bemidji Symphony Orchestra that is just ending their season. That goes through the winter. And as Paul Bunyan Playhouse, yes, the theater that operates in the summer, plus a community theater that operates throughout the winter in the same spot. Yeah, it's very, very active. We don't have outside of the Watermark Arts Center, we don't have a lot of little galleries around. They are pretty centralized. But the arts community definitely is strong, and we'd love to see it grow. Yeah.
Going back a little bit to Greater Bemidji, one of the things that you talked about was mentors. Would you speak a little bit towards how did you engage and excite some of these quote mentors to come and presumably give their time? And what type of background do some of them have?
Yeah, the mentors that we have for the launch pad, we have, I don't know what we're up to now, about 8 or 9 mentors, and most of them are retired executives, and coming from all kinds of backgrounds. Some have just had, summer places and want to give their time when they are in town, and we don't see them during the winter months, but always appreciate their presence. But they're just retired people that are not ready to give up that commitment to their community and really just feel they have something to give back. They're really active in the meetups, so we see them often at the Wednesday morning meetings, and they'll sit quietly and listen to presentations, and sometimes they don't say anything, and then all of a sudden you hear them pop up and have a great piece of advice that really knocks something home for that entrepreneur, and they can take it away. Or they'll set up a meeting with them to have coffee with that entrepreneur afterwards and just continue to build that relationship. So the mentor program that we call office hours is very informal, and we may put some more structure to it, but for the first 3 years though, it has just been identifying people that have experience and willingness to give back, and putting down their bio on a piece of paper and advertising that to our entrepreneurs. And I'm usually the filter, so if someone says, I'd love to speak to someone about marketing, or I'm trying to figure out how to reach an international market, I can look at my list and say, geez, you should speak to Lou. Why don't I connect you via email? You guys then decide, when you want to meet, and that could be one meeting over coffee, or it could be a continued relationship. That's all up to them, but it's just making those connections, making sure that those that have needs are meeting people that have something to give back.
I don't want to talk about that, but I did just spy my friend Hal Leland in the back, and I wanted to say hi to the former mayor because it's nice to see you, Hal. And I've been to this community many, many times for conferences and conventions, and I've toured your downtown, and I've been to your Performing Arts Center, and I've been to your galleries, and the former residence or space that's that's it, yeah. So you have so many opportunities here. You have a beautiful community. Your neighborhoods are beautiful. You have a wonderful downtown. You've got the river going through. I think you have all the components of a lot of success in your future. And I think, it's just getting together on your vision. What is it we want to do as a community and agreeing on that? And I know you have a lot of, I won't say that one word that starts with K because, that's not something we're talking about tonight. But there are distractions like that in every community. But you can get beyond that, and you can get on the same page and have a vision. And so I just want to say thank you for having us here. I don't want to cut off discussion, but we're very honored to come and share a little bit of our sort of secret sauce, and we think that Fergus Falls has a lot to offer, and your best days are ahead of you.
I was going to ask one more question. When the mayor of St. Cloud came up and spoke, he talked a little bit about obviously utilization of all resources in a community, and they have partnered very strongly with a number of service groups in doing like partner projects. Like if a service group has a desire to do X, and they can come up with generally, I mean, he talked about 50-50 funding on something like that. That they've made that a big part of moving St. Cloud forward. Do you do anything similar in Bemidji?
We do. In particular, our Rotary is a really big player in helping us to promote a huge event in our downtown in August, which is our Dragon Boat Festival. 65 dragon boats and teams from across the city, and we all have a great fun day, or actually we've extended it to several days down on our waterfront, and people are competitive and it's fun. Our JCs are great partners. They put on our water carnival every single year. It's a 5-day event with parade and a carnival and all kinds of kids stuff. And then another example is the Rotary partnered with us to put in an inclusive playground at Paul and Babe. So this is a playground that not only mobility challenged kids, but all kids love playing at, and they can play side by side, and it's full from morning to night all summer long. And they raised $400,000 to help put that in. I think the city put in about $100,000. So together we made a great project. But it is important to have partnerships in your community. I agree.
I have one question. What's that? Oh, the K word. Now I know what the K word is. I'm not going to tell.
I just wanted to thank Mayor Shire for getting into the spirit of wearing his Bemidji shirt.
There you go.
So I just want to say, Rita, thank you so much. And I think the last thing you said is probably the most important. Rita has said to me, she says, Ben, we've gone through all these things, we've had these successes, but sometimes the city can never do anything right? So, and sometimes I feel like that here in Fergus Falls too. But what you said there is it's going to take everyone. We do have a lot of opportunities. I think you wouldn't be in this room if we didn't recognize that there's a lot of opportunities. You didn't care. So it's going to take the city and the downtown council and the nonprofit and the arts community and the business community, the manufacturing community. It's going to take us all working together to get to where we want to go. And I think we're at a point in our community where we're ready to get there together, right? That's how I feel. And I think that there's some things happening. Maybe sometimes it takes some adversity to really get us as a community to recognize the opportunities that we face if we all work together. So anyway, thanks so much everyone for being here tonight. And Rita, Tiffany, thanks so much.